Hello. All right, I know I just finished a live on the MLSP page, but I thought this will be a good time to go live now because I have a lot of stuff tonight with the Deep Abyss. I want to continue the story. If you're just joining over the last several days, I've been sharing my story, the extended version. I'm celebrating my 18th anniversary in the home business industry. And each day I've been doing just a bit of the history, how I got here, where I came from. And then also I've been giving away free training to everybody that's on my newsletter. Hello. Hi, everybody. Mr. Bennett, I'm going to touch base with you later. Hopefully you're free tonight. I check with you. I did announce that you're on the call with me tonight, so I don't know. And if you're not, you're not. Sue, Abdul. Hey, Abdul, those biceps are looking hot. They're looking good. I saw you in the gun show the other day. Be sexy. So Ramona, Tracy, everybody. So here's the deal. I shared yesterday. Oh, by the way, if you're not on my newsletter, direct message me your email address or go over to DianeHawk.com from a computer. You can opt in on the right-hand side, or if you're on mobile, you got to scroll down. We're getting the site redone, so it'll be the opt-in will be easier. But that site was built, before mobile was what it is today. So you definitely want today's giveaway training. You'll understand why in a few minutes. But I've already given away 4 audios. 2 on Monday and 2 on Wednesday. Tuesday I fell asleep. I'll be truthful. And the reason why they're audios, because a couple of people are like, well, what are you giving us audios for? Because when they were recorded, there only was audio. There was no video. Okay. And truthfully, I kind of like audio better. I don't know. I do. I like conference calls. It's why the Deep Abyss Mastermind that I'm doing tonight, that's why it's a conference call. It's old, it's weird. And yet there's an incredible intimacy that you could have where you can actually talk to people. I always did interactive calls. So I like that. So anyway, I told you yesterday about how I basically discovered marketing. I had bought a course from a guy. I rolled quarters to buy a course, sent a money order off, and back came this course. And that was the origins of attraction marketing that we have today. And then I just started discovering, because on those tapes and in those reports that I was sent, the guy started mentioning people like Dan Kennedy and Gary Halbert. And I just started doing research, and I started finding things, and I started buying books and tapes and courses off of eBay. I'd buy boxes of stuff. It'd be like $20-$30 for a box, and because I'd see one book in there. The average good book in the industry would cost $15 to $20. If it was a hardcover, it would be closer to $20 at the time. So if I bought a box for $30 and there was a bunch of other stuff in it, the chance of my finding a treasure was big. And oh boy, did I find treasures. So I got to be kind of, as a novice, pretty knowledgeable about direct response, copy, that type of stuff. And it's funny because I was aching I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say this in a bad way because I don't want people to misinterpret it, because I love network marketing. I'm so thankful to network marketing. I would not hesitate if I found the right place. Please all don't send me a pitch. If something turned me on, I would not hesitate to build in network marketing again. I just haven't found the right spot, the thing that I just fell in love with. But I was starting to outgrow the group that I was with. And then put together the death of the founder of the company I was with and the death of my upline and mentor, Frank, that I told you guys about. He died. So there was like this void. And I was just in search of a voice or something I could hang on to, because I was losing my belief. I was losing my my faith because I didn't have my own yet. Even though I was 6 years into the game, I was still relying on that culture and the message. And when Frank died, it was gone. It was gone. And even though everybody was saying the same things, the heart of it was missing. And I'm a very vibrational person. and I could feel that it wasn't the same. So I was just searching for things. And I don't know if any of you guys were around long enough, but there is a guy named David Ledoux. He was big with Isogenics, and he also taught generic how to use the internet and mail order and stuff to build your MLM. And the man I bought the course from, whose name is Joe Schroeder, who I'm going to talk about today, the first course that I mentioned, the one that I rolled quarters for, he had disappeared off the internet. You know, he had done conference calls and different things, and he had all these voice on demand messages. You'd call up, it was like a voicemail, you could listen to him talk. And I'd call over and over and over. There was something about his voice or something about his message that I loved. And all of a sudden, everything just disappeared. He was gone. He wasn't writing anymore. He wasn't publishing anymore. He was gone. And he was the one that I was like hanging on to, that voice that was keeping me in the game. I had cassette tapes. They're still around here somewhere. And, you know, cassettes were dying. I had no, you know, I got a new car and there was no cassette player in it, and Joe was gone. So I started following Dave Ledoux, and he was doing a new training coaching program every month. You'd get, video was brand new. Videos were like this big, you know, it was like such a big deal for anybody to have a video. And this is 2005, and I was on Dave's thing. I forget how much I paid a month. Hi, Ty. Ty, I've been loving, I know your trip wasn't by choice, but it was fun to watch the pictures with you and the kids and everything. I hope you guys had a good time while you were working around the storm. And I'm so bummed I'm not with everybody this weekend. We're all not together due to the storm, but we'll be together again soon. And I can't wait to see you. So anyway, so one day David sent out, it was like a newsletter, and he would send it out like 3 times a week, and then he'd send you out a little video and some audios and stuff, and multimedia was such a big deal then. And one day Dave sent out it was a written piece, and he said, I'm no longer coaching. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going back to building. But if you want to get good training in network marketing, go see this lady. And he linked to Danny Johnson. Now, today, most of you have probably heard of Danny Johnson. Danny Johnson is just a powerhouse, runs these huge events, etc. But at the time, I had never heard of Danny Johnson, and Danny Johnson wasn't on the scene. I guess she had, you know, built her MLM big and everything, and then she kind of was raising kids for a while. So I wrote David back thinking that he wouldn't respond to me. And I said, because he said she was going to be in Boston. And I said, should I get, you know, I hadn't budgeted or planned for this, but is it worth going up to Boston? I can drive up. Is it worth going to see Danny Johnson? And he said, I don't know if it's worth going to see her, but I'll be there, and I'll be in the back row in black. Come give me a hug. So I was like, that's it, I'm going, because I wanted to meet this guy, which, guys, is a key. If somebody that has a lot more wisdom and knowledge than you says, come meet me, I reworked my budget, because I ran everything on a budget thing. Because remember, I was paying off my debt. I didn't have frivolous. I couldn't just go, okay, here's my credit card. I didn't have credit cards. Let me say that again. I didn't have credit cards. When I got myself into debt, I cut them all up. I canceled the accounts, and I was paying them off. I had no credit cards. I had no choice. I had a debit card. I had to put money in the bank. That's all I had. So I reworked everything, and I went to Boston. And I remember it was at the Hilton at the airport, and it was expensive. So it was like $297 for the event plus the Hilton, and I had to drive up there. So I went up, and I found David, and he said, let's go to lunch. So I was excited because this is a very well-known marketer. I was like, the Danny Johnson thing was good. There was only like 200 people there, by the way, maybe even. Sandy Krakowski was there. A bunch of big names were there. I can see his face and I can't think of his name. He has a beautiful wife and beautiful daughters. I'll come up with the names in a minute. But there was a bunch of people who have gone on to become very, very, very well known in the industry. We're all there. And Sandy Krakowski, I will tell you, I'm sure she doesn't remember me, but she pitched me in the bathroom because I sneezed while I was in the stall. I walked out and she was pitching me on her product. So it was pretty funny. So I had lunch with Dave. Sat down, had lunch, we had a great talk, very nice guy, and then we started talking about Joe Schroeder, the man whose books and tapes I had bought with the money order. And I said, where is he? What happened to him? And he said, I don't know. And we just had this great conversation, and I went to the rest of the seminar, and I listened to Danny all weekend, and I actually went to her. There was a bunch of my friends from Herbalife from Boston came. I didn't know they were going to be there. So it was interesting. I walked in the door and there was these people from Herbalife there. And we went to her evening session, which was, a praise session and tambourines and all that other good stuff. And the next day, it was a great seminar. I thought it was very good. But I went home and it was like, I wasn't like, this is my path. And I didn't feel like David was great, but I didn't feel like this insane connection to him. I went home, I got on, I don't know if Google existed. I'd have to look up what year that started. It might have been Alta Vista, it might have been Google. And I just searched Joe Schroeder. And believe it or not, that week, he had written his first post in 3 years. And it was on my friend Richie Reckenbiel, who I'm friends with now. Richie Reckenbiel's blog, because blogs were new. And Richie had a blog for his company, Big Action Media. He sold leads and stuff, and Joe wrote a piece for him. And so I found it, and I looked at the date, and I went, holy cow, he's alive. And I sent him an email, and I figured there's no way. Same as when I sent Dave the email. I figured there's no way they're going to respond, because I think everybody's like a guru. I think they live in mansions. I think they have, like, office buildings, because he always called it Schroeder Publishing. I thought it was this big, like, office building in New Jersey with thousands of employees. I sent an email. And what possessed me to do this, I don't know. But the subject line to my email was, where the hell have you been? And within minutes, I got an email back. And we kind of exchanged emails back and forth. And he was writing some, funny, interesting stuff. I'll show you guys a little of Joe's writing so you'll understand. He's one of the best copywriters ever to have walked the halls of this industry. And we were bantering back and forth, and he wrote, you can keep up with me. Let me have your phone number. I want to talk to you. And it was August 2005. August 2005. And he called me up, and we started talking, and we were on the phone for 2 hours. Now, mind you, I think I'm talking to the biggest guru in the history of the industry, because I was young in the industry and I was not gullible, but I was like, I just believed in the rainbows and stars and magic. And really what it was, he was just a guy. He had been out of the industry for 3 years. He had kind of gone through some troubles with, the ups and downs of everything. And I think it helped him to have somebody write him that knew him in his glory and approach him. And we hit it off and we just started talking. And I started to explain to him what I did, what I learned from his course, and how I'd put together this whole marketing system. And he kept asking me questions. I mean, he interviewed me. He grilled me. And he goes, are you serious? And I go, yeah, I'm serious. I have people call every day with orders, and I take their order, and I run the credit card, and I have it drop shipped from the company. And he's like, how much volume are you doing? And I'm like, 20, 30 a month. He goes, 20, 30 what? I said, 1,000. He goes, you're doing $20,000 or $30,000 in volume a month from this little marketing system that you put together. And he had asked for, to see it and everything else. I was like, yeah. And he goes, you got to be kidding me. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Nobody figures this thing out. Nobody. He goes, I can't believe it. This course has gone to just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And it was a whole big marketing system. He goes, I can't believe you created your own, which is very much, by the way, for those of you in MLSP, it's like the girls right now that created the system that they're using with the challenges. They just took something and they looked at it and they kind of reworked it and they created something of their own. Works like gangbusters. So he was like really cool and he was blown away. We got off the phone and I thought that was incredible. And I just didn't expect to ever hear from him again. He wasn't building anything at the moment, and he wasn't really selling courses. He wasn't really doing anything. The next thing I know, it's a month later, and my phone rings, and it's Joe again. And I answer the phone. And, okay, big deal, by the way. When you meet someone that's way ahead of you, don't get starstruck. Don't be a fangirl or boy. Okay, one of the reasons why I did so well with David and why we had lunch together is because I didn't act like, oh my God, you're incredible. It was just like, we started talking about different people and history, and he knew I knew his work. I had gotten his courses. I knew his work. I knew what he was writing. I knew what he was talking about. I knew his teaching. If you want somebody to mentor or teach you, you need to know their work. I love people all the time. They come to me. They're like, I really, really, really want you to teach me. And I'm like, great. Did you watch this training? No, I said this yesterday, I think. See, I'm going to repeat myself over and over and over. If you want somebody to teach you, you got to know their work. You got to know what their vibe is. You got to know what their message is. You got to intrigue them to want to sew into you and teach you more. So anyway, when Joe called, I picked up the phone, and he's very dramatic. He's a performer. He was a street magician. Okay, he was a street magician, and a regular magician, world-class magician. Like in the 80s, he was like traveling the world. You could still find old videotapes of him doing magic. Very, very world-class. So had some big dramatic opening. I was like, hey, what's up? So he was trying to trigger me or make me nervous or, freak me out or whatever, and he couldn't, because I just didn't. I don't, guys, when I meet someone, if they're more experienced than me, I don't feel like they're better than me. I just feel like they're more experienced from me. There's someone to study with, somebody to learn from, somebody to edify, but I don't feel like anybody's any different than me. I never have. And when I was a kid, I've met celebrities and different things. Last weekend or 2 weekends ago, we were hanging out with Basketball Hall of Fame people. And one of the reasons why they kept inviting us to hang out was because we weren't freaking out because of who they were. So he called me back, and we were on the phone again for another 2 hours. And we started exchanging emails like every day. And he started sending me what he was working on. He was writing. And he would get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And A-Train, yes, Trisha, right? That was so fun. What a good memory we had. So you never know who we're going to meet when we're hanging out down at Happy Land. So we started exchanging emails. And we started, just kind of going back and forth. And he would write stuff and I would write back. And then he told me, and he just started mentoring me. And he told me, listen, you can write me as often as you want, but I'm only going to open the email if your headline's good, your subject line. And he said, because otherwise it's boring, there's nothing to open. So expect that 80% of your emails will be ignored. You need to write a good subject line, otherwise I'm not going to open your email. And so it became an obsession for me to learn to write subject lines and how to trigger someone to open the email. And that was a game that we played for a while. And I would send him stuff I was working on, and he would call me up. And here's another tip for you guys. When you gain a mentor, I had a notebook. See, because a couple things about him. He's an unusual guy, by far, unusual guy. Some of you guys have met him. He's an unusual guy, kind of eccentric. He was very weird about background noise. If you were on your phone and there was any background noise whatsoever, he would get off the phone immediately. Still is like that to this day. So if there was the noise of trucks or cars, or if the TV was on in the house or something, he would get off the phone right away. And my job when I got him on the phone was to keep him on and keep him talking as long as I could, so that I could find the nugget, right? I could find the nugget. Yeah, there, Trisha, I said nugget. Don't write me back, Trisha, and go, you said nugget, so that I could find the gold, right? I didn't say it in that way, though, Trisha. So I always made sure his preference was quiet, so I always made sure I was somewhere quiet. I didn't pick up the phone. And by the way, it was always on his terms. He would call or not call. If I called him, he just never answered. So it was just a matter of when he would pop up, and he was calling me when he had a few minutes. Hence my pop-up calls. All of my clients know when I do pop-up calls, it's like, look, I have a few extra minutes. Let me sew into people. I just tend to do them in a group environment. But Joe he was like, oh, I have 10 minutes. Let me call Hockman. He always call me Hockman, Let me call Hockman. And so I kept it quiet. I didn't answer the phone if I wasn't somewhere quiet. If I picked up the phone and there was a screaming kid, he would have hung up anyway, and I risked not having him call again. So I didn't pick up the phone if there was background noise or problems. And I didn't make excuses to him about that stuff. All I did was I picked up when I could be available and present. Okay, present. The next thing is I wanted to keep him talking, so I had a notebook by every phone with at least 5 questions on it. So if he called, I could pick up quick, and I was able to carry conversation. Most people that want to have a mentor are not prepared to keep the mentor entertained. What does that mean? People who have a lot of experience or running business and different things, they have a lot of options. They have a lot of people that they can be talking to. They need to be entertained. They need to be intrigued. They need to believe that you're going to utilize what they're going to give you. So you have to learn how to suck it out of them, right? You have to learn how to suck it out of them. I'm going to talk about this tonight, though. I shouldn't talk about this here, but most people on tonight won't have seen this. So I needed to get into his head and find out what was important to him so that I could get what I needed out of his head. And the problem was that I didn't quite know what I needed yet. So I wanted it all. Okay, I wanted it all. This is good stuff, right, Ron? It really is. And I just figured out that if I had a series of questions from his work, from his writings, he started writing his newsletter again every day. By the way, newsletter, guys, I got it from him. The newsletter, he wrote a very interesting, unusual newsletter, and people loved it. It wasn't the biggest list in the world, but that list, let me tell you, nobody would not read his letters because they were amazing. So it was a niche, it was small, it was cult-like. So I always had questions, and I had them ready to go. That way I wasn't like, what are you doing today? How's the weather down in Jersey? Is it nice out? I never expected him to entertain me. Guys, you got to get this. I didn't expect the potential mentor to entertain me. I expected that I had to entertain him. What? People get a mentor. They think they hire a mentor, and then they wait. And they wait for the mentor to tell them something profound. No, your job is to suck it out of them. You can get them to talk to you every single day if you're clever, if you're smart. You can get them to talk to you multiple times a day. You could get them to start pointing things out. All the nuance, all the intangibles, that's where the money is. And most people don't know to pull it out of the teacher. Now, my first mentor, Frank, everything was simple. So there wasn't so much you could get from him. You just had to watch, because I don't even think Frank knew what he was doing while he was doing it. It took me years to decode it all. Frank was just doing the thing. He kept it very simple. He did it over and over and over again, and he was extremely charming. People loved him. Jim Rohn, let me make sure everybody's clear. I spent a lot of time in environments with Jim, but I didn't sit at his feet, next to him. Ron has much. Ron Henley, guys, get to know Ron Henley. Ron has gazillions of hours with Jim and close-up time with Jim. I didn't have that. I had books, tapes, seminars, events, and then getting to sit with him in meetings with 10, 15 people. He was not somebody that knew me personally well. He remembered my name. He remembered who I was. Very nice. He'd see me at an event. He knew me. But I was not like this with Jim Rohn by any means. Ron would be the guy. If you want to learn about Jim Rohn, Ron would be the guy. And I remember the first time I met Ron, and we just hit it off, because it was like, oh my God, Joe, I became his right-hand man. And what was interesting is, so I started working on copy, and I started working on learning to communicate better. And he's the one that tilted my world, because when I was doing traditional MLM, it was very about getting them on the product, getting them. I don't know that you could do selfies in 05, Katie, because what were you going to do? Hold the camera backwards? It wasn't possible to do it like that. So when I was just doing MLM, it was always, get them on the product, get them to the meeting, promote event to event to event. It was very effective. You got them into a culture, etc. Joe taught me to create a culture of my own. Joe taught me that I was the issue, not the company. And that was so helpful to me, because when Mark died at Herbalife, when Frank died at Herbalife, there was that void, because the company wasn't the same. Now it's gone on and survived and done well and all the things that it's done, but it wasn't the same. And anybody who was there at that time can tell you that it wasn't the same for a while. And I was clinging and looking for something outside of myself, and he taught me it was about me and my message and my energy, and that he taught me how to gather a group of followers and people. He'd call them your zealots, and he would say, who are your 3 people? Get this is so powerful. Who are your 3 people that will bleed for you, Diane? Who are your 3 people that will bleed for you? Who's going with you no matter what? Who's going with you even if the ship sinks? Who's going with you because they love you and they want to link arms with you? It was such a different thought process and philosophy. Yes, it was make sales. Yes, it was put product in people's hands, of course. But it was like he taught me how to create a posse. He taught me how to create a crew. And look around. Any great marketer in this space has a crew. And then there's other people on the second tier of the crew, or the next circle around it and the circle around it. And people kind of want to be in the inner circle. And so he always packaged everything in a way that caused people to want to be in his inner circle. And I remember, it's funny, on his tapes, he made out, like he would mention names of people, and he would always call them the great. He was very dramatic. The great, whoever, the great. And I'll tell you later another story. I have so many stories. We won't get through all. I mean, there's the Joe stuff will probably go on for a week because there's 6 years of it. 6 years of it. But he made it sound like, on the tapes and in his company, he made it sound like there was this posse and there was this crew and all this other stuff. And I thought everybody was like a mogul and everybody was this and that. And what he did was he created a story around everything. Everything was a story. Everything sounded exciting. He signed everything Schroeder Publishing, the work plant at Schroeder Publishing. I now call this the workroom that I'm in, which is my downstairs level here. The workroom, and he created this image, and my mind created the fantasy of all of this stuff. Now, he never lied and he never said anything untrue, but my mind created this fantasy because he used certain words and he crafted it in a certain way that was so powerful. So I'm going to wrap up today's live with this, and then I'm going to send you out, guys. Who wants some old recordings of me and Joe, which I never release? Who wants to hear? The only problem is you guys got to promise me, okay? Don't go bugging him. He's not really in the industry right now. You'll hear later on, why and everything else. Don't go bugging him. Don't go looking him up and trying to contact him. He doesn't want to be contacted. I know there's people on here now that have messaged him and said, teach me the code. Leave him alone. Okay? Leave him alone if you can find him. You know who you are. Leave him alone. He's not going to teach it to you. He doesn't want to teach it to you. And I'm saying this point blank. He used to say to me, look, Diane, I don't need a friend. I got a dog. It's so terrible. I don't need a friend. I got a dog. I want to teach you this stuff. You can go out and do stuff. And also he knew I was making him money. I was making him money. He'd always say that to me. I mean, all the time. I get too buddy with him. He goes, I don't need a friend. I need a dog. I got a dog. Isn't that horrible? But it was true. You don't want to be buddy with the mentor. Guys, you don't want to be buddy with the mentor, because then you can't gain from them what you need to gain from them. They're not there to be your best friend. They're there to teach you, to sow into you, to guide you. They're not supposed to be your best friend. Now, over years, if that develops and that happens, would I say that I am good friends with Joe today? Yes, I am. Do we talk about the kids and this is not? But in the beginning, no. And it was better that way. And he was smart enough to keep it that way. Okay? Very important. Very important. Everybody wants to be best friends. People say to me all the time, I really want to just hang out with you. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't want to just hang out with me, because if you hang out with me, you're going to find out that I have zits right there. You're going to find out I fart. You're going to find out, and I'm talking about me, but he would say this too. He goes, you don't want to know the mortal guy, the guy, in his underwear, the guy, whatever, with the beer belly or whatever. You don't want to know that guy. You want to know the guy that you need to learn from. Isn't that, you guys get that? So that's why I'm funny at events and stuff like that, because he taught me, if you let them in your room, if you let them into everything, they can't learn from you. Because all of a sudden, here's what's powerful. When you watch somebody that's making a lot of money and you see their skill set and you could watch that and honor that and learn from that and try to integrate that, it's powerful. When you see somebody that's making gobs of money and you realize that they fart just like you, sorry to be graphic, but I want you to get this. All of a sudden, there's actually a resentment that starts to happen. All of a sudden, there's a weirdness that happens. So yeah, you're better off not trying to be social with your teacher. Zits and farts. Sorry. Now, Anna, that doesn't mean we can't go out like we did in Austin. That doesn't mean that we can't do this and that. And I may not be the one that you want to learn from. I don't know. But what I'm saying is you go out and find best buddies. Don't try to make your mentor your best buddy. I know nobody talks about this, Ron, because Joe taught me, and Joe said that nobody talked about it to him. And it's true. It's true. I don't try, like, Ron, we just got to meet Larry Thompson. You've known Larry for years. I just got to meet Larry Thompson. And I met Taylor before. I met Larry briefly years ago, but not really. I just got to hang out with Larry Thompson. Got to talk to Larry on the phone. This is not. I want to learn from Larry. I don't want to make him my best friend. I don't want to, because you can't. Because once he has 50 years of wisdom in this industry, I want to grab that wisdom. And there's been ups and downs and, pitfalls and triumphs and all that other stuff. I need to learn all of it. If I get too close and I start to know, like, some of the challenges he has or different things he has, that's when it gets weird. Speaking of, people, you don't want to try to get up in the personal business of the person you want to learn from. Okay, and I've made that mistake. There are people that I've gotten close to. I've, in different times of turmoil, I've shared things that I shouldn't share with people. Not a lot. I mean, most everybody wouldn't know. If you wouldn't know the difference between if I had a tragedy today or I had a triumph today. You wouldn't know. Because you're not going to see me scream, I made $1 million, blah, 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 blah. And you're also not going to see me scream that my heart was broken. Because it's none of your business. Isn't that terrible? It's none of your business what's going on in my personal life. Your business is to learn. Like I said, from me, from whoever you want. Go target who you want. Listen, Jim used to say, listen to what I say, but don't watch me too close. Same as, do as I say, not as I do, that old saying. When I meet someone that I want to learn from, I always go back to their early days. I interview them and quiz them about their early days. I want to know how they got it off the ground. I want to know how they figured out the nuances. I want to know the worst things that happened to them. I want to know about the collapses. Because the original call of today's wake-up call was originally going to be the name of the game is Stay Alive. And then I changed it to the mentorship because we were putting up all these pictures. Staying alive is much harder than making money. Hear this. Staying alive. That's why I tend to pick people who have been in the industry at least 10 years, if not longer. The longer, the better. Okay? The longer, the better. See you later, Chris. Because the longer they've stayed alive, the more they know. Not about how to win. Everybody who's ever won can tell you about how to win. That's all they ever talk about. They have to tell you about how to lose and get back up. Dale Calvert always said, I want to find a guy that's been knocked down multiple times. I'm not saying it the right way, Ron, but you know what I'm talking about. He said, I want to find the guy that's been knocked down over and over and over, who's standing up again. That's the guy I want. So when I seek somebody to learn from, and you'll find out later as the story emerges where Joe was during those 3 years that he was missing, that I had to go hunting for him. He had been down. So I didn't know that because he didn't tell me. I could have met and he could have told me his saga and sob story about something that had happened in his company, but he didn't. He didn't. And so I was able to learn from him because he chose to leave that part out until later, until much later, like 5 years later. Okay. So gosh, I'm going around in circles. There's so much to share about this experience, but in the end game, I do believe that the universe tilted because I took a risk, and I went to Boston, right? I didn't have the money planned. It's not that I didn't have the money. I didn't have it planned, right? I had to rework everything. I took a risk. I got in the car. I said yes, right? Joe teaches you to be a yes, yes person. I got in the car. I went to Boston to meet David Ledoux, who wasn't the guy that I was supposed to meet, and had a conversation that caused me to do a search, that caused me to find Joe at the exact right moment where I could get at him and where I was interesting to him, because literally a month later, all the big internet marketers figured out that he was back, and they were all around. And if I hadn't met him then, and I'll tell you tomorrow the story about the first time I met him face to face, if I hadn't met him then, in that moment, in that time, right exactly then, if the stars hadn't aligned, there's no way that a Little Housewife would have ever gotten his attention. There's no way that a Little Housewife would have ever gotten the time with him that I got. And there's no way that I could have won him over enough that when the big boys showed up, that he would have still paid attention to me or put me in the forefront. It was a tilt. And that's something that I always walk through. I always look for doors to walk through. When an opportunity shows up to go somewhere, and Trisha, see, you're saying the stars align for a reason. Trisha is somebody that every once in a blue moon I'll say, hey, is anybody, she lives in Connecticut. She lives like an hour from me, 45 minutes from me maybe. And every once in a while I'll say, hey, is anybody around? Does anybody want to come? And Trisha will, and it's last minute, and Trisha will say, let me see what I could do. And she'll make arrangements with the kids or her husband. And by the way, happy birthday to Srini, Trisha. She'll tilt things, and that's how she ended up with me on the Basketball Hall of Fame dinner. And that's how we ended up hanging out with the Hall of Famers and stuff. And that's how that happened. It's because she said, you know what, I'm going to go. She said, yes. I'm always looking for an opportunity to say yes to something, because you never know who you're going to meet where. You never know what's going to happen. And if I hadn't made a decision to drive to Boston that way, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'd probably still be making, I don't know, 10 grand a month, which isn't bad, but it's not, you know, it's not like, oh my God, incredible. I'd probably still be on Mill Team at Herbalife. I'd probably still be grinding to get sales. Or maybe I would have found another MLM because of the turmoil that was going on over there or whatever. But I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be on stages like I am today. I know you came to 2 hours to the Mohegan to see me, Trisha. And it's funny because I have a client, Dean Gross, who's a big basketball fan. And I wanted him to come to that event because I knew it would turn him on. And then the storm came and he had other stuff going on and he couldn't come down. And I don't know that that would have happened the way it did if Dean had been able to make it. And there'll be another opportunity for Dean to do something cool. But you got to say yes, and you got to go, and you got to be prepared. Who are you going to meet? Who are you going to sit with? Do you have a question ready? It drives me crazy. I get on a call, I do a pop-up call or whatever, and nobody has anything. Nothing. They're waiting for me to entertain them. Tap dance. Da, 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 da. Clarence, come down sometime when we're hanging out. Da, da, da. I'm going to tap dance for you because you think it's my job to entertain you, and it's not. Show up prepared. Have some questions ready. They don't have to be for me. I'm not talking about me, whoever you're with, or have some ready for, in general, for people. A lot of times people ask me a question, I teach them what's a better question, right? Yes, Karen will tap dance for us, yes, and clog and all her other things that she does. But I, on the other hand, am not a good tap dancer. I can do a buffalo, maybe, with one leg, but I can't do it with the other leg right. So, you know what I mean? So, like, yeah, if you hire a coach, if you have a chance to work with somebody that you like as a mentor. Hi, Jeremy Neal. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. So, be prepared. You never know when you're going to be in the right environment. If I hadn't been prepared, this never would have happened. Never, ever, 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 ever. Same thing. If I hadn't been prepared and knew my Herbalife stuff, they wouldn't have asked me to help at the events. If they hadn't helped me, if I hadn't helped out at that one event in Orlando, I wouldn't have met Dan. Dan wouldn't have taught me what an autoresponder was. I wouldn't have learned how to do all this stuff. If I hadn't, all this stuff, it's like a chain reaction. It's dominoes. And when you look back, and as I sit here and look back over 18 years, everything was a door that I decided to walk through. Everything was a chance that I decided to take. Everything was a question that I decided to ask. Everything was a correction that I was willing to take, right? When I asked a goofy question and they corrected me, I didn't stop asking questions. I just learned how to ask a better question. Isn't that profound? I just learned how to ask a better question. What could you ask someone today that would give you insight into how they think? All right, I've been rambling long enough. That's it. If you're not on the newsletter, direct message me your email address. I keep saying people keep messaging me and going, I'd love to be on the newsletter, and they don't send me their email. Send me the email. I am putting you on my newsletter. You will get 18, probably more trainings today. I'm going to send out some audio of me and Joe so you can hear his voice and hear him. And it's funny because I'll probably send you one that's a little later on in the time period that we spent together, because in the beginning, all he would let me say is say your name and where you're calling from. I would introduce the call and end the call. That's all I was allowed to say. And the audio that I sent out the other day, the Diane Hochman Struggle to Victory tour, let me just tell you the story of that before we get off. At one point, Joe, we were doing conference calls and we started to build an organization. I'll get more into that tomorrow. And he just got bored. Okay, he just got bored. He's just like a eccentric genius guy. He got bored. So he just said, I'm not going to do calls anymore. I don't feel like it. Like, what do you mean you don't feel like it? We have 50 people. We were doing calls Monday to Thursday. Like, we got 50 people coming every night. We're building up to 100 because that's how you start, guys. You get 2, you get 10, you get 20, you get, we have 50 people coming. You got to do the call. He goes, I don't got to do nothing. I don't know nobody anything. I'm not doing the call. I guess you could do it if you want. Now I look back on it and I'm sure he was setting me up. I think he was bored, but he also set me up. And I said, well, yeah, I'll do the call. So I started doing these calls Monday to Thursday night consistently. And I was getting pretty good. And one night, Joe's a chronic smoker, still is, and he would cough all the time. It was like coughing. Okay. So one night I'm going and blowing and I'm on the call and I'm just going and blowing, preaching away on my soapbox. And all of a sudden I start hearing background noise, and we used to leave the calls open so people could interact. And I'm like, excuse me, but if you're on the line, make sure you mute your line up. It's *6. And then I hear noise again, and I'm getting pissed off. Who the heck is on the moderator line? Because a couple of people have the code, making all this noise, rustling around and all this other stuff. And so I'm finally like, listen, you need to mute your phone or you need to get off the line. I'm pissed off. They're interrupting the flow. And I'm very fanatical to this day about phone etiquette and conference call etiquette. Drives me crazy when people they're not considerate of their neighbors. So all of a sudden I hear the cough. And I'm like, crap, it's Joe. And I'm doing this rock and roll call. All of a sudden, I realize it's him. And I didn't stop, right? I didn't stop, but I knew he was there. And I'm wrapping up the call. And then he starts talking. What had happened was he realized in the evening, hi, Taylor, I was just talking about you and Larry. He realized in the evening, because this was like a 9:30 call. We did our calls at 9:27. Don't ask why. He was eccentric. Oh, so it was 9:27 p.m. And it would always like mess up everything because everybody had a call at 9, everybody had a call at 10 or whatever, and he insisted on doing it in the middle. Bubby Gunter, haven't seen you in a long time. Wow. 9:27 conference calls. This is probably like 10:10, and he starts talking. And he had run out of coffee and run out of cigarettes, so he ran to the 7-Eleven, and he figured, what the hell, I'll dial in and see what Hochman's doing. And he sat there and he listened to me, and then he did probably 20 minutes on the call, and then he called me right after. And he goes, why didn't you tell me you could talk? And I said, I did tell you I could talk. You didn't listen. He goes, no, you didn't tell me you could talk like that. And I said, well, what was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to convince you that I could talk like that? He goes, this is a whole different ball game. He goes, I have to teach you now. And now we were on the phone, I don't know, he probably sat in the 7-Eleven parking lot for another 2 hours teaching me everything about how to run an effective conference call. Not just effective as far as the mechanics of it, but how to glue people to the call, how to glue people to the story. And then he started teaching me at a whole nother level. So think about it. The average person, when he said no more phone calls, the average person would have went, oh, I guess we're not having any more phone calls. I said, no, I'm going to keep the phone calls going because we have a group and they depend on us. I came in service, and then he caught me serving and caught me doing it after, and he caught me after multiple weeks of practice. So he heard me getting pretty good. And he then said, okay, I'm obligated to teach you now. So he was obligated to teach me in the beginning because I had used his course and I had used it well and I had executed it, right? So how many of you guys have a course that you haven't executed, but you want the guy who made the course to teach you stuff? He already taught you. Did you use it? Did you execute so he could tweak you? No. So I used his course. He was obligated to teach me. And then I kept the community alive and I kept doing the calls and I practiced and I sharpened my saw, and then he was obligated to teach me. So I'll leave you on that note. When you're out looking for mentors, obligate them to sow into you. Obligate them to teach you. Make them feel that they have to, whether they're a paid person, or whether they're a person that just falls in love with you and your potential. Obligate them to need to teach you. That's the difference. Guys, you can hire someone and you can call them your mentor. You can hire me and call me your mentor. You can come to my Deep Abyss and call me your mentor. You can just watch my videos and call me your mentor. Or anybody, not me. It's not about me. But you can't really hire a mentor. You can't really pay for a mentor. You can call them that. And you could hire them and maybe they'll turn into that, right? I hired Joe originally. I gave him $500 or whatever in the beginning. But if you really want a mentor, you have to make them need to teach you. Need to teach you. Do you have anybody that needs to teach you? Needs to teach you because you've shown them your desire, your gusto, your guts, your chutzpah? Who have you made need to teach you? It is interesting, Katie, isn't it? Because everybody runs around with a completely different mindset. I cause people to need to teach me in every arena of my life because they know that I want the wisdom and they know that I will use it well, and they know I will pass it on. I want them to put a seed in me because I will reproduce what they give me. That's duplication, kids. That's what duplication is. Are you fresh soil for somebody to plant a seed into? Or are you a field and you go around and you try to get everybody to plant all their crops inside of you? I always think that's funny. They go from person to person to person to person, course, idea. Everybody plant a seed in me. So what do you got? You got corn trying to grow on top of tomato. Anybody who has a garden knows you can't grow all those crops together in the same space right on top of one another. They'll choke each other out. They'll drown each other. They'll kill each other, right? Nothing will grow because everything is competing. It's like putting too much into your head from too many voices. Everything is competing. And when it's not so much weeds, Amelia, because weeds are different because those pop up from outside. They're good plants. One's corn and one's cucumber and one's zucchini and one's this. But they can't all coexist at once. Now, if you plant a row of tomatoes and the tomatoes grow well, and then you start another row and you plant a row of zucchini and the zucchini grows well, and then you plant a row of, whatever else, radishes or whatever, and they grow well, then what you do is now you have a farm. Now you got this huge, wonderful, Chris, I thought your class started. What are you doing here? That's when you now have a full, bountiful garden and you are well fed. You're well fed, right? But if you try to plant it all, just take a bunch of seeds, mix them all up and dump them in one spot, nothing can grow. Nothing will yield. Think about it. All right, she's ranting. She's going on too long. Guys, Deep Abyss tonight. It's like I talked too much today, so now they're going to be like, why would I want to come listen to you again tonight? Because we're going to dissect this. We're going to have you thinking about who is your mentor. We're going to teach you how to get them. We're going to teach you how to get them. We're going to teach you how to get the most out of them. It's going to be incredible. Robert Bennett's going to be on with me as far as I know. I keep saying he is. I want to make sure. They had the storm down there. There could be stuff going on with his son or anything else. But and Robert's been in the industry for years, and we're going to dissect this. We're going to slice it. We're going to dice it, and we're going to have a group discussion. And we're going to break down all these blockages in your mind about why you don't have the guidance that you sorely need. It's going to be powerful. And guys, it's $25. And you can, whether you want to be an MLSP member or not, you don't have to be a member. You can become an affiliate and you can promote it. You make $8 a person every month. So, 3 people and it's free. So it's phenomenal. And all of you that are members, I'm tasking you with bringing someone tonight. I'm tasking you with getting somebody on that phone. I want to see that phone line loaded up. I want to see you, if you want to learn from me, well, that's one of the things. You got to bring me new minds. You got to bring me new minds to plant into. I don't know if they're all for me or not for me or whatever, but you got to bring minds. That's one of the criterion of Joe said to me, bring me food. We do conference calls. I go, well, what's going on? And he goes, go out and promote. Go bring people. Bring me food. Feed me. The way you feed a trainer is to bring them new minds. That's how you feed them. You put people in front of them. It's not worrying about who's selling and who's buying. If the presenter is presenting, you put people in front of them. The people decide whether they're buying or not. The people decide whether they want to endorse something. The people decide whether they like the message, whether it suits them, whether it fits them. It's not your decision. It's the people's decision. All you have to do is invite. $25. All right. I'll see you guys later. I'm out. Bye.